All right, let's get right into it. We are going all the way back to 1931 to talk about a film that didn't just scare audiences, it pretty much taught Hollywood how to be scary. This is so much more than just a movie, it's really the foundation of modern horror as we know it. So chilling, right? The way Bela Lugosi delivers that line, with that deliberate pause, it's so elegant. It tells you everything you need to know in an instant. This villain isn't some brute. He's cultured, he's patient, and he is absolutely terrifying. That one line just sets the entire mood for everything that's about to happen. You really have to put yourself in their shoes. For people in 1931, this was a brand new kind of terror. They were just getting used to sound in movies, and then this comes along. Now, Universal Studios claimed people were actually fainting in the aisles. Was that just brilliant marketing? Maybe. But either way, it tells you one thing for sure. Dracula had arrived, and nobody was ready for it. Okay, so this is the heart of it all. Todd Browning's Dracula wasn't just another monster flick. It was the film that literally wrote the playbook for the genre. It harnessed the new technology of sound and figured out something revolutionary. Sometimes the scariest sound you can have is no sound at all. And you can see its influence everywhere. Seriously, think about it. The sweeping cape, that aristocratic accent, the castle covered in cobwebs. It's been almost 100 years, and the DNA of this film is still present in pretty much every piece of Gothic horror out there. You could say it's the original source code for the modern vampire. So what gives a film that's over 90 years old this kind of staying power? Well, a huge part of it comes down to two completely unforgettable powerhouse performances that didn't just portray characters, they basically created archetypes that would last forever.
And here they are, the two pillars of the film's horror. They work in this perfect, chilling contrast. On one hand, you have Bela Lugosi's Dracula. He's smooth, he's magnetic, he draws you in even though you know you shouldn't get close. And then you have Dwight Frye's Renfield, whose raw, bug-eating madness just completely repels you. One is the seductive heart of the film. The other is its screaming, shattered soul.
Let's really break down what made Lugosi's performance so iconic. It's the whole package, right? It's that polite charm that can switch to raw hunger in a split second. His Hungarian accent wasn't some quirk, it became the definitive voice of ancient aristocratic evil. And that stare, they actually used tiny targeted lights to make his eyes glow on camera. That hypnotic gaze wasn't just acting, it was a technical effect. And for all of that, for creating one of the most famous characters in cinema history, from making Universal Studios an absolute fortune, Bela Lugosi was paid a grand total of $3,500. It's just wild when you think about the immense cultural impact he had for such a tiny sum. But we absolutely cannot forget Dwight Frye. You know, a lot of people will tell you that his performance as Renfield is actually the scariest part of the movie. His switch from this prim and proper businessman to a raving lunatic is genuinely haunting. That manic laugh, the wildness in his eyes, it's just this terrifying portrait of a mind completely shattered by evil. Now, the acting was incredible, for sure, but that's only half the story. The real genius of this film is its atmosphere, and that atmosphere was basically born out of the technical challenges of early sound filmmaking. They had to get creative, they had to innovate. And a lot of that innovation came from this guy, cinematographer Karl Freund. He was a master of German expressionism, which is a fancy way of saying he used shadows and distorted visuals to show you what was going on inside a character's head. He basically painted with darkness, making the sets feel alive and menacing.
You know, the most powerful tool the film uses is actually what you don't hear. We're so used to a musical score telling us, okay, get ready to be scared. Dracula just doesn't do that. It leaves you in this oppressive, uncomfortable silence. And that makes every single sound, a footstep, a creaking door, a wolf's howl, feel incredibly loud and incredibly terrifying.
So here's the key takeaway. The real horror happens in your imagination. We never see Dracula actually bite someone on screen. When he's staked at the very end, all we hear is a groan from off camera. The filmmakers knew a fundamental truth about fear. What we imagine is always scarier than what we're shown. And all this creative genius, well, it paid off, big time. This wasn't just an artistic triumph, it was a commercial juggernaut that completely changed the future of Universal Studios and launched what we now know as the first cinematic universe. Just look at these numbers for a second. In the middle of the Great Depression, when people had very little money to spend, this film more than doubled its budget. It sold 50,000 tickets in its first 2 days alone. That proved that even in the toughest of times, people will still pay good money to be scared out of their wits. And Dracula's success was the spark that lit the fuse. Universal saw dollar signs and immediately greenlit Frankenstein. That kicked off the golden age of Universal horror, giving us this whole pantheon of iconic monsters. But it all started right here with Count Dracula.
So, what's the biggest legacy of all? This film literally defined what a vampire is for generations. Before 1931, vampires and stories were all over the map. After Bela Lugosi, this became the template. The tux, the cape, the accent, that seductive but deadly nature. Every vampire since has either copied this blueprint or has had to make a conscious choice to break away from it. So let's wrap this all up. Why does this film still work? It's more than just being a classic. Even with its age, even with some of the more theatrical moments, Dracula is still a masterclass in how to build pure, atmospheric dread. And if you take one thing away from our little deep dive today, let it be this. The filmmakers were hemmed in by budget, by new technology, by censorship, but instead of letting those limits hold them back, they brilliantly turned every single one into a strength. They created a masterpiece of suggestion, proving that what you don't see is always scarier than what you do. And that leaves us with one last unsettling question. The reason the film is so powerful is because Lugosi's Dracula is both horrifying and strangely alluring. He's a monster, no doubt, but he's a charismatic one. So you have to ask yourself, honestly, if he looked you in the eye and said, "I bid you welcome," would you walk through that door?